Damn, James, you just bounce on your boy or what?
Still here. Can you hear me?
Okay, all right, now I do.
All right. Sounds good. How did the rest of camp go? Because when we last spoke, I know you did part of your camp at Extreme Couture when the fight was first scheduled, and then you did the rest back home. How did everything go?
Man, went well. I got back home just as like Las Vegas was shutting down and Bama too, but to be honest, we never really stopped training. We just kept training through it, kind of ignored all the protocol and everything they told us to do. The 6 feet thing, it's kind of hard to train if you can't, touch and grapple and roll and do all the stuff that you have to do to get ready for a fight. So, we just trusted everybody would come to the gym, train, and then go home and do all, and, just be at the house and not, be around. And, there's a lot of single guys at the gym swiping through Tinder and whatnot. Hold off on that until after the fights, and you can go do all that other good stuff.
And I saw, if anyone follows you on Instagram, I know obviously Walt Harris you got to work with. I saw Julian Marquez as well. Who else did you get to work with as far as bodies in the gym helping you get ready for this fight?
Yeah, Julian came out for like 2 or 3 weeks. Walt's, we train at the same gym, so I always get to work with him. So this is the first time since like 2012 that him and I have been on the same card. I think I was still an amateur the last time that we fought together. So, I think this fight, on top of everything else that happened and is going into this fight is a little bit extra special for at least myself, and I'm sure Walt as well.
Have you sort of visualized the fight without fans, and how do you think that will, impact you in the fight? And I'm sure you've noticed too that you can probably hear the commentators as well. Is that something you're factoring in?
Not really so much the commentators, whatever they got going on, but yeah, luckily for myself, when I was fighting on the local circuit and as an amateur, there weren't very many people in the stands. So, I have a little bit of experience fighting in front of empty arenas, essentially. But yeah, I don't think it'll be a factor too much. Everybody's got to fight under the same circumstances and same, situation. So it's the one who handles those situations best is the one that's going to have a leg up in these fights.
And I think stylistically, this fight with Jotko, very action-packed. I think both of you guys will probably end up staying on the feet. How do you envision the fight playing out? Because, obviously both of you are very experienced in the octagon.
I don't think he likes the pressure too much. And, that's like the only thing that I do like really well is move forward and pressure and fight with a lot of toughness and grit. So, yeah, my plan is just to move forward, make them uncomfortable, and, just over time, just watch them melt.
And last one, I saw that TikTok video you playing Rock'em Sock'em Robots with Walt Harris. How much money did you lose?
Man, he took all my money. He took every penny, man. Super heated game. I almost, snatched my money off the table and made a run for it. But then I was like, man, that's Walt. If he gets his hands on me after taking some money from him, it's not going to be too good for me. So, I took my loss like a man, and I'm looking forward to the rematch after these fights.
Thanks, Eryk. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Nolan King with MMA Junkie. Nolan, go ahead.
Hey, Eryk. Just hoping to get you to elaborate on something you just said to James. You're talking about sharing the card with Walt and the impact that he's had on your career. Can you just expand a little bit on what he's meant to you as a training partner and what kind of impact he's had on you as a fighter?
Yeah, Walt was my introduction to MMA. The very first day I walked into an MMA gym. I had been doing a little jiu-jitsu elsewhere, but I thought that maybe I want to fight. So I walked into the gym. Walked into his gym at the time, and his coach at the time, very non-competent corner. He just walks up to me and was like, "Hey, can you fight?" And just like every other bozo on the street, I grew up fighting, gritty guy, tough guy, not skilled at all, just but growing up, that's just how it is, And then I was like, yeah, I can fight. And he's like, okay, cool. He handed me a pair of boxing gloves. I don't even think I had a mouthpiece. And he was like, go ahead and get in the ring. And I was like, all right, cool. I get in there, and then Walt gets in there. And, man, I knew who Walt was, but I didn't know Walt like that. We just had a mutual friend. So, they arranged for me to go to the gym I showed up, and he was my first experience with MMA. And needless to say, a 5-minute round, probably 4 minutes and 57 seconds of it, I spent the whole time, in the corner, getting beat up in the most. Like he's a gentle giant, man. He really is. He's got a heart, a giant heart. So in the most, in the nicest way possible, he beat me up. And man, I just fell in love with the sport right then and there. And I just feel like there was a whole new skill set that I had to learn. I just felt it'd be a lot funner to be on the other side, to be on the giving than the receiving side of those things. So, yeah, I don't think if I have that experience, I don't think that, I have an MMA career.
And listening to you talk, he's obviously somebody that, means a lot to you in your career. And how important is it to you or how important do you feel it is for you to be able to go out there and set the stage, especially, given what this night means and everything that he's gone through?
It's super important. Every fight is, I try not to put like more emphasis on one fight than the other, because every fight I feel like is just as important as the last one, because the last one was what got you to where you are now, and this one's going to get you to where you're trying to go. So, having him, here, having him get ready to push you to that next level, because he is, highly, highly, highly skilled. Especially on the feet, definitely has the fastest hands. I think from the middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight division, I don't think anybody has faster hands than he does. So, as he's honing in and dialing these things in and getting ready and for a fight himself, it just makes me that much sharper and much more prepared.
My last question for you: do you feel like there's maybe a little extra, motivation for you guys to keep on winning, that maybe after this pandemic clears and we can go back to having fights in arenas, that maybe the UFC can go back to Alabama and hold a show with you two?
I hope so. I think if we go out there and we both get finishes in devastating fashion, as we're both accustomed to doing, I think that, the UFC comes to Birmingham or, wherever in Alabama, it's going to be a sellout event. And, everybody, the whole Southeast, I think, will come in, travel, spend money, ticket sales, views, all that good stuff. So, yeah, I think that Alabama's an untapped market. The UFC hasn't been there in a really, really long time. So I think with two guys from the state, having a lot of success in the sport at the time, that, a lot of people would show up and support it.
Appreciate the time, Eryk. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Damon Martin with MMA Fighting. Damon, go ahead.
Hey, Eryk, kind of following up on what Nolan said there with Walt. I mean, I kind of feel like the entire world is rooting for Walt this weekend, with everything he's gone through. But how do you manage those emotions as his teammate and for yourself? Because there's no way to deny this is going to be an emotionally charged fight for him, and it kind of bleeds over to you as well as his friend, his teammate. Like, how do you deal with that emotion? Do you use it? Do you not want to think about it? Like, how do you deal with that?
I mean, it's kind of hard to ignore the elephant in the room. Everybody knows what happened. Everybody knows, but, I will say that, him being in the gym, I think, when he's in the gym, he's one of the guys, man. We make fun of him. He talks trash, and, there's a lot of camaraderie that goes into this. So, we all kind of took that hit, and, his daughter has babysat my children before. So, I think it's a little personal for everybody in the gym. And, but I think the camaraderie and, on the fellas and the coaches and training, kind of helps get your mind off those things. And, there's no telling what the emotions are going to be like on fight night. But I think right now everybody's focused, dialed in, and on the things that they need to be focused and dialed in on. But I think it would be very ignorant of me to say that on fight night, the emotions might be a little bit different, but, we're not there yet. So I can't tell you how he's going to feel or how I'm going to feel. But right now I think everything is, calm, cool, and collected. And a couple of assassins going to go out there and, put in work on Saturday.
Yeah, you've bounced. You went to light heavyweight for a few fights, and now obviously you're back at middleweight. We have seen a lot of guys find success, moving up a division lately, which is something we didn't really see a few years ago. Usually it was cutting weight. We'd be talking about you trying to make welterweight, to find success there, things like that. But you obviously went to war with Thiago Santos, a guy who took John Jones to a split decision. Like, are you in it? Are you considering yourself in between? Like, would you consider more fights at light heavyweight? Are you happy at middleweight? Like, how is that weight cut for you?
Yeah, the weight cut's never fun, but this is the thing. I'm down to fight whoever, whenever. Like, I think the world knows that. The UFC knows that. My coaches, my corners, my teammates, everybody knows that. But I think for my career, middleweight is the way to go because, like, the fight is always on my mind when I'm fighting at middleweight. Because I have to cut weight, so when I'm always conscious, like 24 hours a day of what I'm doing with my body and my mind. When I fight at 205, I don't have to necessarily think about not eating a burger and only eating a salad instead, because I'm a burger, pizza, sugar, candy, beer kind of guy in between fights, man. You probably wouldn't even recognize me in between fights, but I think the discipline and effort that I have to put out to make weight in and of itself gives me an edge on the fight, in the fight, because, when fight time comes around, it's like, man, you put in all this work. You put in all this, and it's not just physical, it's mental too. You put in all this work. You just can't let fights slip away like that. And when I fight at 205, I just feel more locked, or excuse me, when I fight at middleweight, I just feel more locked in mentally, which I think is a huge aspect that I think that now the fighters are starting to realize that, about the mental preparation and how much, it can benefit you when the actual fight comes. When I fight at 205, when I leave practice, I really don't think about the fight anymore. If I want a burger, I can go get a burger. If I want a hot dog, I can go have a hot dog. I don't drink, but drink too much during fight camp. So, that's not an issue. But, yeah, I'm just more locked in mentally at middleweight.
So what's your favorite food to have after a weight cut?
As I'm a burger, pizza, anything with grease. Before I met my wife, people don't believe me, but man, candy and fast food was 80% of my diet. Like gas station candy and stuff like that, Skittles and soda and I just I eat like a child, man. In between fights. She really dialed me in, and I think even aesthetically you can see the changes in the diet, because I've always trained just as hard, all that good stuff, but now the diet and nutrition is behind it as well. So the weight cut isn't I'm not dead in the sauna or whatever. It's much easier to make weight doing it over time the way she has me do it, rather than when I was doing it by myself. I was just trying to cut all the weight in the last week, and wonder why I only have 3 minutes of stamina left in a fight.
And last question, I'm curious because I think a lot of people forget, for all the experience you have in the UFC, you're only 4 years into your career. But as a guy who comes from college football, Dominic Reyes had said something interesting leading into his John Jones fight, where he talked about the super athlete, guys coming from sports like football or baseball or basketball, and having success in MMA. We're so used to martial artists, guys who start out in karate or wrestling even, and then making the move into MMA. Do you buy into that, to that super athlete? We are seeing more and more of that in the sport. Guys like yourself, Dominic, obviously we've seen Greg Hardy have success in the UFC. We've had football players and guys make the move into MMA, but you guys, you play for the University of Alabama, obviously one of the best programs in the world. I'm an Ohio State guy, but that's neither here nor there. But I mean, do you think we're going to see more of that? Do you think we're going to see more of that super athlete kind of make an impact in this sport?
Yeah, I wouldn't classify myself as a super athlete. Greg Hardy, first round draft pick, Pro Bowler, super athlete. Dominic Reyes, his boxing, his footwork, these guys are super athletes. I would consider myself an athlete by trade. I'm not a guy who's just going to pick up a basketball and 360 windmill dunk it. I'm not going to hit a home run. I'm not going to, every athletic accolade that I have or level that I've achieved, I've got off the sweat of my brow. And it's almost, for me, it's almost insulting to get cast into that super athlete category because, like I said, I'm an athlete by trade. I wake up at 5 in the morning, train all day, and watch film when I was in school, and I still do now. But yeah, I was the guy who was up early and first in, last out kind of guy. My whole life, when everybody else was asleep or, doing, even in high school, even after football was over, I would still go to school early, lift weights, run, do all that and then do it again after school. So, I'm not one of those guys that and I'm not saying that Greg Hardy and Dominic Reyes is one of these guys, but I'm not one of those guys who can, sleep till noon, wake up. Like I know a guy, who played in the All-American game with Ted Ginn Jr. And he said at 7 o'clock in the morning, Ted Ginn Jr. woke up, didn't even stretch, put on his cleats, and ran a 4.3 at this Army All-American game combine, whatever. That's never going to happen for me. I'm the guy who's got to get up, work out all day and train and eat right and do all that other good stuff. So yeah, I would say I'm an athlete by trade and not a super athlete. I had to work really, really hard for everything that I got.
Thanks, Eryk. Appreciate it.
Thank you.